The ivory invitation arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, tucked inside an envelope so thick and ornate it looked more like a royal decree than a party announcement. It was hand-delivered by courier, with gold lettering that glinted in the light streaming through my office window. "You are cordially invited to the Morgan Family Legacy Gala." It read, followed by the date, time, and venue: the Grand Ballroom at Morgan Tower. I stared at the card, my fingers grazing the raised family crest, a roaring lion atop a marble column. The same emblem that had been etched into every contract, letterhead, and building stone of the Morgan dynasty since my grandfather's time. A symbol of power, ambition, and ruthless legacy, and hypocrisy. They hadn't expected me to attend. I knew that much. My name wasn't even listed on the official family registry anymore, not after I walked away 5 years ago. Back then, I was the black sheep, the quiet architect with too many idealistic ideas, who refused to play politics, refused to betray people just to win favor. When I stood up to my father about ethics violations in a downtown project, he called me disloyal. "You think your name alone gives you a seat at this table?" He sneered that day. "Then earn it." I walked out of Morgan Properties and never looked back. What he didn't know was that I took my blueprints with me. The last 5 years had been a slow burn of long nights, sleepless months, and grit. I launched my own firm under a pseudonym, M. Gerben Works, and started rebuilding, this time ethically, sustainably, quietly. I didn't plaster my name across the buildings I designed. I let the work speak for itself, and apparently it had. Last quarter, M had outbid Morgan Properties on 3 major contracts, including the prestigious Northridge Eco Center. And now, the whispers had started. Who's behind M? The answer would come soon enough, but not yet. First, I needed to see them all again. One last time before everything changed. I picked up the invitation and slipped it into my drawer. "I'll be there," I whispered. The phone buzzed. Chloe, my executive assistant, poked her head. "And just confirmed, Morgan Tower's event floor has been officially paid for by our shell company." "They don't know it's us." "Perfect," I said. "Let them toast to their legacy. We'll pull the curtain back when the lights are brightest." Chloe smiled. "What do you want to wear?" I smirked. "Something that makes Savannah wonder if I married a billionaire." Savannah, my older sister, was the queen of the family's social ladder. Always perfect, always polished, and always reminding me of my wasted potential. She married an investment banker, drove a Bentley, and once laughed when I said I wanted to design affordable housing. The Morgans had always cared more about appearance than integrity, but appearances can be deceiving. As I walked into my penthouse later that night, I glanced around at the minimalist space I'd personally designed: floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick, lush greenery. It wasn't Morgan money that paid for it. It was mine. Everything they thought I lacked, I had built on my own terms. And soon, the empire they clung to so tightly would find itself in the hands of the one daughter they had dismissed. I sat down at my drafting table and pulled out the old blueprint: Morgan Tower, my final project before leaving. The irony that they were holding the gala there made the coming reveal even more poetic. I ran my fingers across the pencil marks I'd etched. Years ago, they thought I had no ambition. They thought I was too soft. They thought wrong. The Grand Ballroom at Morgan Tower shimmered like something from a dream or a high-budget film set. Crystal chandeliers hung like icicles, catching the golden light from artfully hidden fixtures. The scent of expensive perfume and aged scotch mingled with the buzz of curated laughter and political conversations. I stood at the entrance, letting the room swallow me whole for just a moment. Savannah was the first to notice me. Her manicured fingers froze mid-toast as her eyes narrowed. Her mouth curled into a practiced smile, though I saw the twitch at the corner. "Eleanor," she drawled, crossing the floor in stilettos that echoed like gunshots. "You came. Didn't want to miss the last chapter of a fading empire," I said, my voice low and silk-wrapped steel. She stiffened. "Still dramatic, I see. Still superficial, I see." We both smiled like sisters on a holiday card. Behind her, our father stood at the head of a polished oak table, surrounded by investors and board members. He looked older, but not weaker. A lion in a custom Armani suit. Harold Morgan, the self-made tycoon, the visionary, the man who told me I didn't belong. He hadn't noticed me yet. "Why are you really here, Eleanor?" Savannah asked, eyes scanning my dress: midnight blue silk, custom cut, sharp as a blade, "to honor the family," I said innocently. She leaned closer. Don't embarrass yourself. I didn't reply. She'd find out soon enough. The Morgan Legacy Gala wasn't just a tribute to our history, it was a smokescreen. Hidden behind speeches and charity auctions was a deeper game, the announcement of a massive merger. Morgan Properties was desperate. Declining stock, lawsuits, and a recent string of failed developments had sent tremors through the firm. Tonight, they would announce a strategic partnership to secure their future. What they didn't know, that partner was me. Chloe was stationed near the media table, managing the tech team we'd embedded into the event. They thought she was a consultant. In reality, she was streaming the entire gala to a private investor network. We were buying the company from under them, silently, elegantly, ruthlessly. I stepped toward the front, where Harold was raising his glass, and so, as we step into the next chapter of our great legacy, he boomed, I am proud to say we have found a visionary partner to guide us through. Savannah nodded beside him. Smug, he gestured toward the side entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new face of our future. Everyone turned. Silence. No one entered. Harold looked confused. Whispers floated like smoke. Then the lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit the screen behind the stage. A logo appeared. M. Gerbenworks gasps. I stepped forward, walking through the crowd like a knife through water. Eyes widened. People turned to each other in disbelief. Harold's face paled. No, he said, barely audible. I reached the stage and took the mic from his hand. Thank you, Father, I said calmly. I'll take it from here. The crowd rippled. Phones came out. Flashbulbs popped. Savannah stumbled backward. I'm Eleanor Morgan, founder and CEO of M. Gerbenworks, I said clearly. The firm that outbid Morgan Properties 3 times this year. The firm that now holds majority shares in your company. And the one that has just finalized a full acquisition. I paused. You didn't see it coming because you never looked beneath the surface. Murmurs turned into a storm of noise. I could see the boardroom sharks doing the math. They were realizing the votes had already turned. Their new queen had just taken the throne and she had built her kingdom from ashes. I built MGON principles this company abandoned years ago. Innovation, sustainability, ethics, I continued. We're not destroying Morgan Properties. We're restoring what it should have been. Harold took a step toward me, fury clouding his eyes. You betrayed us. No, I said, voice icy. You betrayed the name. I'm just reclaiming it. Behind me, the screen displayed a blueprint of the new Morgan Tower expansion. EMG. Savannah whispered something to her husband and disappeared into the crowd. A few investors followed. The ballroom, once a monument to power, now echoed with the sound of a dynasty unraveling. And I, once the forgotten heir, stood at the center, calm and unshaken. I had earned my seat. I had taken the table. And this was just the beginning. The boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it. Sleek walnut table, 10 leather chairs on either side, Harold's massive executive seat at the head, like a throne presiding over decades of decisions. The same cold steel art installations still clung to the walls, a relic of my father's taste, expensive, impersonal, soulless. But this time, I walked in, not as a daughter, but as the new majority shareholder. The doors clicked shut behind me. The remaining board members sat frozen. Some had risen to shake my hand earlier, faces plastered with forced smiles once the acquisition was confirmed. Others, like Richard Talbot, the family's old money ally, still glared at me with disbelief, lips pursed like he'd swallowed a lemon. Harold Morgan was the last to enter. He didn't sit. He paced. You think this stunt means you've won? He growled, not looking at me. I stayed seated, perfectly composed. This wasn't a stunt. It was a strategy. One I executed for 4 years while you dismissed me as emotional and unfit. You exploited us, he snapped. Used inside knowledge. Everything I used was public record. Your pride blinded you. I told you the downtown project was a mistake, and you ignored me. I told you not to partner with Faulkner Group, and you did it anyway. You burned $120 million in 6 months trying to prove I was wrong. The room went still. Harold's face reddened, but he said nothing. I didn't destroy this company, I said. You did. I just gave it an oxygen mask. From the far end of the table, Diana Cho, one of the newer board members, cleared her throat. Miss Morgan, she said, emphasizing the title. What happens now? I took a breath and pulled out a file. Chloe had prepared the presentation, simple, precise, brutal. I opened it. Phase 1, restructure. We consolidate the real estate arm, retire non-performing assets, and implement the Green Housing Initiative. You shelved 2 years ago, Talbot scoffed. That was a pipe dream. I turned to him. It's now backed by $300 million in clean energy funding from the same firm that declined your calls last fall. They invested in me. Silence. Phase 2. I continued. We rebrand. Morgan Properties becomes Morgan Urban, a signal of legacy and transformation. We will prioritize adaptive reuse, urban development, and international partnerships, not the stagnating suburban sprawl you've been choking on. A few heads nodded. Phase 3? Diana asked. I looked directly at my father. Leadership change. His mouth twitched. You want my chair, he said, voice low. No, I replied. I want you to take the advisory role I offered you 4 years ago before you cut my access card and told security I was no longer part of the company. A few board members exchanged glances. You're lucky I'm offering anything at all, I added. Harold turned to the board, appealing to what little loyalty he had left. She's emotional, vindictive. This company was built on discipline, not theatrics. Discipline? I echoed. You covered up a harassment scandal in 2021 to save face during an IPO that never even happened. You laid off 800 people during COVID while increasing executive bonuses. And you let your personal grudges define business strategy. I leaned forward. I didn't build M. Gerben Works by being emotional. I built it by being everything you never let me be. The final blow landed when Diana spoke again. I move. We vote to confirm Eleanor Morgan as acting CEO, effective immediately. My father's jaw tightened. He didn't move. I second it, Talbot said, though his face remained sour. It wasn't loyalty. It was survival. One by one, hands went up. Only 2 abstained. Not even Harold voted against it. I rose slowly, walked to the head of the table. Harold stepped aside, face blank. The chair was still warm when I sat down. Thank you, I said. You'll all receive the Phase 1 directive by end of day. We meet again Monday to begin transition planning. The meeting adjourned, and board members quietly filed out. My father remained standing. This isn't over, he said. No, I replied. It's just no longer under your control. His eyes locked onto mine, and then he walked out. I didn't exhale until the door clicked shut. Chloe entered a moment later, her tablet buzzing. We've already had 3 major publications request interviews. CNBC wants to run an exclusive on the takeover, and the investor call is scheduled for noon tomorrow. I nodded. Set it up. You okay? She asked gently. I stared at the empty chair across from me, the chair where I once sat, years ago, being lectured about how women shouldn't lead with emotion, that I wasn't hardened enough for this world, that being Harold Morgan's daughter was both a privilege and a burden. Now, it was a weapon. I'm more than okay, I said. I'm ready. Because taking the seat was one thing, holding it was another, and I had waited long enough. By Monday morning, headlines were everywhere. Eleanor Morgan, the silent strategist who reclaimed her empire, daughter of disgraced CEO's father in unprecedented corporate coup. From boardroom ghost to powerhouse CEO, Eleanor Morgan's takeover shocks real estate world. I should have felt victorious, but all I felt was tired. The media frenzy wasn't the hard part. The hard part was sitting across from my father at the investor meeting and watching him pretend like it didn't break him. His posture had changed. Gone was the dominating presence that had once filled boardrooms with tension. In its place stood a man clinging to relevance. Let's keep this cordial, he had said before the meeting, smoothing down his silver tie. You can take your moment, Eleanor, but don't humiliate the Morgan name. I had stared at him blankly. Dad, you did that all by yourself. The meeting started at 11 sharp. Institutional investors joined via video, flanked by analysts, assistants, and curiosity. My team, crisp in navy and charcoal suits, sat behind me like an army. Chloe controlled the slideshow. Diana Cho sat beside me. Harold took a seat at the far end of the table, not at the head. Not this time. I stood. Good morning, everyone. As acting CEO of the newly formed Morgan Urban, I want to thank you for your patience during this transition. What you'll see today is not a rescue. It's a rebirth. Slides clicked behind me. Quarterly losses under Harold's final year, mismanaged projects, scandal recovery costs, investor confidence plummeting. Then, projections under my leadership. New partnerships. The $300 million clean energy backing. The overseas expansion. The Green Corridor project in Detroit already underway. I paused on a slide titled, Rebuilding with Integrity. Transparency will no longer be a performance. It will be a principle. My father believed that legacy was earned through dominance. I believe it's earned through trust. A few investors leaned forward. I didn't hold back. We are dissolving the Faulkner partnership effective immediately. The lawsuit settlement was finalized last night. Additionally, I've opened an internal ethics review on the executive bonus allocations over the last 5 years. That made Harold sit up straighter. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. You'll have your chance to speak during the Q&A, Mr. Morgan. Mr. Morgan. He flinched like I'd slapped him. When the presentation ended, the room applauded, not out of politeness but relief. Clarity had returned, but Harold wasn't done. When Q&A opened, he leaned forward and activated his mic. I find it deeply concerning, he began, voice still confident, that this company is now being steered by personal vendettas rather than pragmatic leadership. While Eleanor has demonstrated ambition, she lacks the historical insight this firm was built upon. I stared straight at him. You mean the historical insight that led to 3 separate SEC warnings and the loss of 3 of our largest development partners? His face tightened. You gambled with shareholder money and lost. I brought capital, innovation, and legal insulation. You're emotional, he snapped. Still, there it was again, the same tired insult, but I smiled. If emotion brought us a $1 billion valuation increase and international backing into quarters, then perhaps the firm needed a little more of it. He sat back, quiet. The room was still. One of the investors, an older man from Covington Group, spoke into his mic. Frankly, Mr. Morgan, what's most emotional is watching someone who was fired by his own board try to pretend he's still relevant. We support Eleanor's vision. Mick clicks. Affirmations followed. Harold said nothing else. He just stood and left before the meeting ended. The next day, his resignation letter was leaked. A quiet farewell from the man who once thundered across the real estate world. And just like that, the reign of Harold Morgan ended not with a crash, but a whimper. A week later, I visited my mother's grave. I hadn't been in years. The headstone was tucked beneath a sycamore, peaceful and shaded. Margaret Langston Morgan, 1959 to 2003. Grace in strength, love in silence. I knelt down and placed a small white tulip beside it. I did it, Mom, I whispered. I took it all back. For you, for me. I remembered how she used to sneak me into her garden when I was little, away from Harold's shouting. She once told me, don't let anyone confuse silence with weakness, Ellie. Silence can be strategy. Even thunder waits for the right moment. I had waited long enough. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. Chloe, investor call from Tokyo. They want to expand. And you've got a meeting with City Hall next week about the green zoning proposal. The world was moving fast. And now, I was the one setting the pace. That night, I sat in my penthouse office overlooking the skyline. A Morgan name was still on the building. But now, it meant something different. It didn't mean legacy through entitlement. It meant survival, evolution, vision. And the woman they had tried to erase? She had rewritten the ending. 6 months later, I was on the cover of Forbes, The Quiet Conqueror, how Eleanor Morgan rebuilt a fallen empire into a global powerhouse. Funny how silence, once used against me, was now my brand. Morgan Urban was soaring. Our clean energy projects had gone viral on social media. We'd just closed a $200 million development deal in South Korea. And the firm had been nominated for an International Sustainability Award. But what mattered most was what happened outside the headlines. At the core of our offices, I'd created a scholarship fund for underrepresented women in architecture and urban planning. I renamed it the Margaret Langston Fellowship. My mother would have cried, probably would have tried to hide it with her favorite sarcastic smirk, but still she would have been proud. At the grand relaunch gala of Morgan Urban, I stood center stage in a navy silk gown, holding a glass of champagne as city officials, investors, and former skeptics mingled around me. The ballroom sparkled with gold light, filled with floral arrangements shaped like miniature cities designed by our newest intern cohort. Your mother would have loved this, said Diana Cho, walking up beside me. I smiled. She loved beauty with a purpose. A few steps away, Chloe laughed with a tech entrepreneur from Berlin. And near the bar, A familiar face loomed, Harold Morgan. He was thinner, grayer, out of place in his oversized Armani suit. We hadn't spoken since the boardroom, but now he approached, drink in hand, false warmth behind his sharp blue eyes. "I suppose congratulations are in order," he said. "Even I can admit when I've underestimated someone." I didn't blink. "That makes a first." He chuckled, hollow and metallic. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Eleanor, but perhaps, in time, we could discuss some form of collaboration. Quietly, nothing public." I stared at him, this man who once told me I'd never be more than a ghost in his shadow. "No," his smile faltered. "You don't have to be cruel." "I'm not," I said calmly. "Cruel would be letting you back in just so I could watch you fail again. I'm choosing peace, for both of us." He stood still for a moment before nodding stiffly and walking away, vanishing into the crowd like a relic of a forgotten era. And that was it. The man who had ruled with an iron ego now faded without fanfare, just as I'd predicted. Later that evening, I stepped out onto the rooftop terrace. The city pulsed beneath me, alive. Mine. Chloe joined me, handing me a bourbon neat, to the girl who once sat in the corner of her father's office. "Sketching buildings no one believed in," she said. I clinked glasses with her. "To the empire she built when no one was watching." We sipped in silence. Peaceful. Full circle. That night, I logged into the private portal for the Margaret Langston Fellowship. Applications were already flooding in. Young women from all over the world, Pakistan, Brazil, Ghana, Ukraine, dreaming of building the cities they wanted to live in. That was my legacy. Not just buildings. Not just headlines. But doors open for others. Spaces once locked behind glass ceilings, now shattered. 3 months later, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, stood in front of the Morgan Urban HQ during our community open day. She wore plastic heels, a pink princess dress, and held a notepad full of skyscraper doodles. She walked right up to me. "Are you the boss here?" I knelt beside her. "Yes, I am." She beamed. "I want to build stuff like you." I smiled, heart full. "You will." Because no one would ever tell her she couldn't. Not while I was still standing. And that was the real revenge. Not the takeover. Not the headlines. The real victory was becoming the woman I needed when I was a girl. And in doing so, I ensured no one could ever silence the Forgotten Heir again.